I done? I made such a terrible video on the last one. I need to make it up to the view. I can't. How can anybody take me seriously as a builder? Why? Why have you forsaken me, Senpai? Why?
How you doing, everybody? Mark here of Wolf and Raven Arts. Hoping you're doing well on this whatever random weekday it is that you can't really tell because of post-production. So in the last video we covered a very basic build, what I call guerrilla foamsmithing, which we built on top of a product already to give you a working prototype build, but I felt like it wasn't a good video. As you saw, it was shot on my cell phone, and it was a little hard to chop up. So, as a redeeming video, I've decided to put together a complete video, complete build video, on this torso armor, which goes on like so. It's very nice, makes me look a little bit slimmer than I actually am, which hopefully, thanks to a new gym membership, will help. Anyway, so I felt it was unfair to leave up a video that was so poorly done that to not have an actual video on building step by step something like this, that's just setting some people up for failure right at the beginning, and I'm not cool with that. So anyway, we're going to do a whole video on this, and we're going to go from template to the final product. Now, the template I used was from Evil Ted Smith. You can get it on his website. I'll put a link below to the armor template itself, so that way you know what I'm working with. As far as strapping and things like that, I'll do another video on that. I like to strap things a little differently than some people do. Some people just want to use hot glue with either nylon strapping or other forms of it. I like to go a little bit more because the applications I do, which is LARP and combat intensive stuff, is not friendly to simple strap systems. We're just going to get into this. It also comes with a back piece, so they go together like this. Don't judge me. So anyway, yeah, let's just go to the video. Okay, so I got my template off the internet, obviously from Evil Ted Smith. When you print it out, it's going to come in multiple pages, and you're going to have 4 pieces total after you cut them all out and tape them together. You're going to have one for the top of the torso, the bottom of the torso, and then the 2 pieces for the back. As you can see here, they all sort of fit together. You're going to want to take your X-Acto knife and cut out the sight lines, so that way when you have the piece transferred onto your foam and you're ready to glue, everything lines up properly. The next step that I did was take my templates and put them where I want it on the foam and keep them down with push pins or tailoring pins, as you can see. This keeps them in place while you're markering around, and it's much more professional. Your lines are going to line up a little bit better. Just be sure to be conscious of how much foam you're using when you're putting down the template. After that, I grab my fat Sharpie. No offense to the Sharpie itself, but I tend to bleed over my templates when I'm putting them down, so that way the line after I take the template off is much more precise and exact. You can always use a regular Sharpie or a pen, but I prefer the fat Sharpie. Of course, afterwards, when you're done, take your pins off, get that template off, and you have yourself your first piece. It's always a good practice to make sure you're marking down exactly where your pieces go. It's helpful to keep track. Someone forgetful like myself will often forget. After that, you make sure you have a very sharp knife. I usually sharpen beforehand, and you're going to cut on the inside edges of your template. Now, if you have a very sharp knife, you're going to have a nice buttery smooth cut. If the foam is fighting you in any case, you're going to want to make sure you sharpen it. Your lines like that are going to look pretty clean. That's how you know you have a good blade. If it comes out chunky or with burrs on it, either replace the blade or sharpen it like I do. Now you're just going to go all the way around until you get your piece cut out. Take your time. Definitely don't have your thumbs in the way. Safety is a big, important thing, despite the low intensity of this hobby. cut that guy out. Now, I always go on the edges to kind of keep my contact points as straight as possible, but that often results in me having to do extra work afterwards. Not a big deal. And there you have it. You have one piece, and that's both sides of it. Now, what you're going to do is flip that template to do the other side. If you do two of the same things, it's not going to end for you very well. But so that's why you only have one piece for the top portion of your torso and one piece for the bottom portion of your torso. So do the same thing. Put that guy on your foam, cut it out, and you will be ready to go. Now, of course, once both sides of your top portion are done, you're going to want to do the abs. So same thing, put your template down, mark it all out, and then start cutting. Same thing here, you're going to do one side, flip your template, and then do the other. Now we're going to get onto heat. You're going to hit all of your pieces with your heat gun. Make sure the heat is evenly distributed out, and you're going to want to make sure you do both sides. Of course, the reason we're doing this is to shape the piece so when we glue it later, it will retain a certain curvature to it. It won't just be one flat piece. Make sure the heat is going all the way through. If you have a good heat gun, this shouldn't be an issue. And once it's nice and hot, just start rolling it. You're going to want to press your thumbs into it, maybe another heavy object, but you're going to want to make sure you get that curvature in there. Now you're going to do the same thing with your ab pieces. Heat it all the way through. Make sure you get both sides and you get full coverage over the entire area. Make sure you're closing all the EVA foam so that way when you seal it in the next part, you're not going to have any missing spots. Alright, so once you're all heated up, you're ready for the next step, which is gluing. We're going to take our contact cement and start putting our pieces together. Make sure you're wearing your respirator, still very important. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take our top portion of our torso and the bottom portion and stick those together on the horizontal seam first. And we're going to do this with both sides and then stick them together later. So when gluing, make sure you get full coverage on the areas you're ready to glue. Now you're going to want to leave a sort of thin film like that when you're done because it's going to reduce the drying time. Now the drying time can be anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes, just until it gets a little tacky, but almost as if it's transparent. Now I apologize for my camera work. The camera was pointed a little further down than I had liked, but we continue to glue all the areas we need it, and it's a little hard to tell, but I started putting the pieces together. Now I will suggest this, when you're putting these two pieces together, start from the inside to where the center of your chest would be and work your way out when lining up the lines. You're going to have to fight the foam a little bit to make sure that curvature stays, but don't be afraid. The foam is going to move and it's flexible. Just make sure you're following your lines, and you should be pretty good to go. If the outside doesn't match up perfectly, it's not the end of the world. You can always trim it down, but that's something for later. Now we're going to get ready to stick those two guys together to give us one big torso. Same thing as before, we're going to glue our surface area, make sure we're leaving enough on there to actually glue, but nothing too much. And after about 5 to 10 minutes, when it's nice and tacky, we're going to put them together. I began at the top, matching my seams where the neck area is, and started to work my way down. With the curvatures, you'll find it's a little difficult to get the seams perfect, but with a little bit of practice and ingenuity, you can get halfway through. In the case here, I made it about halfway to the solar plex and then actually started on the bottom and let the entire piece sort of collapse into itself. It's also going to be a little tricky with bigger pieces like this to put pressure from both sides. So you're going to want to use your thumb and fingers to really knead the foam together and create as much contact as possible for the glue to get settled in. The glue, of course, is pressure activated, so the more pressure and the more working into it, the stronger the bond. But after that, you should have a finished piece. As you can see, it's a little bit flexible, but we have what we went out to accomplish to do. Now we still have the back to do, so we're going to do the same thing. Take our pieces, the inside of them, and get them all nice and glued up. We're going to, of course, wait our 5 to 10 minutes, let it get nice and tacky, and stick those together. We're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to do the, well, in this case, the left side first, and then the right side, and then we do the middle. Of course, this takes a little bit of time. And you want to be careful, match up your seams again. In the case where seams may not match up perfectly, you may want to prioritize one area over another. Like I prioritized the top here and figured at the bottom, if they weren't perfectly aligning, I could just cut a piece off. And of course, we're going to go down the middle. I did the same thing as I did with the front, where I started at the top, making sure those lined up pretty well, and just carefully follow the seam line. You got to work sometimes both sides to get them to, again, collapse into each other. But with a little bit of faith, you can kind of see that it works out. And we have our finished back piece. So there you have it.
Alright, so hopefully by now I have properly shown you how to make an actual foam piece going from template to this again. Hopefully you have seen that heating this up here, folding it, how the curves work, and using your edges will give you a product that is not only in the desired shape that you're looking for, but also actually gives you a certain detail. Also, one quick note, as I've stated before, I do my own strapping systems, but if you kind of want to not go that far into it, you can always take both pieces at the shoulders, glue them, and get one piece that'll fit over your head. Now, of course, if you're a bigger person or a person just like me where this isn't exactly geared towards your average size person, you can extend the shoulders out a little bit on both sides and even on the back and figure out where they'll meet, and then you can glue it from there. Like I said, I just prefer to do my own strapping because I like to add stuff on top of it or put fur on top of it. You get the idea. As with the previous two videos, like and share on Facebook. If you're seeing this on YouTube, subscribe and like the video. It would help me out tremendously, and I would be very appreciative of it. Thanks for watching. I'm glad that I'm on a roll. Hopefully this is inspiring you to get on a roll, especially with torso armor. Torsos are a great starting point for any costume build, because then you can expand from there. If you're going to work with a helmet, you can expand upwards to your helmet, then you can go to shoulders, arms, legs. This is really a nice core piece to work with. And as you can see, it gives you a nice definition, but it's not so overbearing that you can't do anything with it. From here, you can take your 6mm foam and layer it on if you want to do armor plates and pecs. You can also take your 2mm foam, 1mm, 2mm, you know what I'm talking about, the small detailed stuff. And you can also do same thing, like the trimming around the edges, intricate line work, things like that. Don't be afraid to go to Michael's, maybe pick up some stencils, and then trace those stencils onto the 1mm foam, cut it out, and then you'll already have some interesting patterns. Yeah, so cool. Thanks. We'll see you in the next one, and keep crafting. Don't be demotivated. Week 2 of 2018. Do it. Shia LaBeouf, do it. Do it.
Make your dreams come true.